Ho ho ho, neighborinos, Lydia here from the Simpsons Theory, and this is my Christmas special. One of the great things about Christmas, apart from of course all the presents and fattening foods, is settling down to watch your favourite festive things on TV. Home Alone, It's a Wonderful Life, and of course the Simpsons Christmas specials. They always make me feel so warm and Christmassy and carry a bit of nostalgia that no other cartoon can replicate. So in the spirit of the season, I thought it'd be fun to look back at the original Christmas special that kicked it all off, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. As everyone knows, The Simpsons got their big break on The Tracy Ullman Show in 1987. This was before spanning off into their own primetime television series in 1989. Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire was originally intended to be the 8th episode of the series, and the babysitter episode, Some Enchanted Evening, was actually intended to be the very first. But interestingly, the original version of this episode had a lot of animation and colouring mistakes, so that was put on the back burner and pushed to the season final. So, as this was the 8th episode to be produced, but the first one to be aired, it has a more refined animation that the other episodes following it didn't quite have yet. Additionally, the characters' personalities are far more developed. This classic Christmas Simpsons episode was directed by David Silverman, who then went on to direct some truly standout episodes, including Krusty Gets Cancelled and Homie the Clown.
I'm seeing double here. 4 Krusties!
He also directed the Simpsons movie. The episode opens with a snowy title card before we pan down to see Homer and Marge driving to the school pageant. And you'll notice that this episode is missing the iconic Simpsons intro, which was added later on for the second episode. This was because Groening thought that a longer opening sequence would result in less animation and cost. At the pageant, the kids perform the Santas of Many Lands, which interestingly was based on Matt Groening's experience in 2nd grade when he had to do a report on Christmas in Russia. Back at home, the kids are writing their Christmas lists, and Lisa requests for a pony 6 times. Little did she know that she would eventually get her pony 2 seasons later, in the episode Lisa's Pony. But at the end of that episode, Lisa decides to give the pony back after seeing what it's done to her father, as he tries to struggle with 2 jobs to cover the cost of sheltering and feeding the pony. Anyway, back to the first season. Bart requests for a tattoo for Christmas and is of course told no. But while at the mall, Bart sneaks into a tattoo parlour and gets one anyway. So Marge has to use all of their Christmas savings to remove the tattoo. And it just gets worse. Whilst over at the power plant, Homer is informed that there will be no Christmas bonus this year by Scrooge Mr. Burns. Homer finds out their entire savings are spent and they have no money for extra gifts. But he puts on a brave face for his family as he doesn't want to ruin their Christmas. Homer then journeys outside of his house to look upon his crappy decorations. And this is compared to the decadence of Flanders' home. This juxtaposition between Homer and Ned Flanders in this episode is so interesting, clearly differentiating the differences between the two families, from Ned's flashy Christmas decorations and his mountain of presents to Homer's dog toy for Maggie.
Hey, Mr. Simpson, you dropped your pork chop.
This moment may be a really poignant moment for their, well, rocky relationship. I personally believe that this was the very moment when Homer's intense animosity for stupid sexy Flanders really came alive, and it persists to this very day. Homer then decides to drown his sorrows at Moe's bar, and whilst there, Barney explains that he's making some extra cash by working as a part-time department store Santa. You may notice that Barney looks a little different here. His usual brown hair is now yellow, and it's the same colour as his skin. This idea was later dropped because of the belief that only the Simpsons family should have yellow hair, making them stand out from the rest of the people in the town. After going through Santa training and learning not to punch kids, Homer is approved as a Santa on Christmas Eve. And while at the mall, Bart is dared by Milhouse to go over to a Santa and yank off his beard. And when Bart tears the beard off of Homer, he is ushered into the workshop where Homer explains the situation. Bart is touched that Homer would go to all of this effort just for them, and promises not to tell anyone. Homer then takes Bart to go and get his paycheck, but is devastated to learn that his net pay is only $13.
$13?
Barney tells a deflated Homer that he's going to go down to the racetrack to bet his winnings, and convinces Homer to come with him and that he's going to be a sure winner. Believing that this is their last chance of a Christmas, Homer and Bart head down to the racetrack. But instead of betting their money on a greyhound whirlwind, they instead put it on a little dog called Santa's Little Helper, despite the fact that the odds are 99-1. And as you'd expect, the dog loses miserably. As Bart and Homer are about to head home, they see Santa's Little Helper being thrown out. The dog spots the pair and leaps into Homer's arms, and Bart begs Homer to keep him, who is initially reluctant until a lick from the hound warms his wintry heart. In the DVD commentary, it's revealed that the creators got letters of praise for heightening the awareness of the abandonment of racing dogs, even though they didn't know it was a real thing. In fact, there are many centres across the UK made specifically for rehoming retired or abandoned greyhounds. When they eventually get back home, Homer is about to tell his entire family that there will be no presents, and that's until Santa's Little Helper jumps in, and this delights the entire family, and Marge tells him this is the best Christmas ever. And the episode ends with the entire family singing Jingle All the Way. I love Homer in this episode. This was well before he became the dumb and almost useless human we know now. Here he was just a loving, albeit slightly grumpy dad who was struggling to make ends meet, but trying his very best to help his family. There were so many low points for him in this episode, from not getting a Christmas bonus to losing their savings, the terrible Christmas decorations, getting underpaid as Santa, and losing the dog race, not discounting his obvious sadness that he may not be able to provide what Ned Flanders can. He keeps getting knocked down again and again, but he doesn't give up, desperate to give his family the Christmas he thinks they all deserve. And this only makes the ending even more rewarding. Now, I know what you're thinking, this is the Simpsons Theory. What am I doing just rerunning this episode? Well, I'm going to slip a little theory right into the very end. There are many theories online that believe that this episode, the first episode, could actually be the last episode when the Simpsons series eventually ends. This idea was put forward by none other than executive producer Al Jean. In a tweet he wrote, "My idea for the last episode ends with the arrival at the Christmas pageant, and the whole series is a continuous loop." I quite like this idea personally, and the idea that The Simpsons exist in a loop and ending with the show with the very first episode is a really interesting thought. However, it would be a little strange, as even though the series is considered as non-canon, I feel that these characters have developed so much over the last 30 years. But maybe that's just what Christmas does. It brings us back to a simpler time and back to our very roots. So why can't that be The Simpsons' roots? But there is one more Simpsons Christmas episode that was almost the very last episode, and we're going to be talking about that next week. So, what do you think of this episode? Was this the first episode you saw? If not, what was it? Let me know in the comments below. Also, what do you think of this theory of a continuous loop? I would like to say a huge thank you to my Flying Hellfish members, James Whitehead, Timothy Belson, Who Else But Zane, Leah Melvin, Pingu, Spinellium, Tommy Goss, Steve Carr, Charlie Hume, Sean McCahey, Justin Trebell, Andre, Stefan Stavoitov, Jake Geyer and Rob Turner.